But make no mistake, the main thing on the menu here is U.S. air power, probably in the form of very precise B-2 bomber strikes. So this is not a ground operation. This is not a major war with Iran. This is very precise, detailed impacts, perhaps, on Iran's nuclear weapons capability. And as you suggest, always have to add into that cyber activity, maybe a possibility of Israeli special forces action on the ground. Who knows? But they have air superiority there. But really, Joe, we're down, I think, at this point to the weaponeering. So people are coming in to brief Donald Trump saying, if we put this bomb on this aim point this many times, here is the expected damage. Their goal to make sure that Iran can never have a nuclear bomb and can never reconstitute that capability.
Interesting. Are there other half measures? And if that sort of saboteur's approach to knocking out power, for instance, or a cyber attack, would that also be part of an air campaign? I don't know where this power is coming from at a site like Fordow or at Natanz. How would that be accomplished?
Well, it could be. And what the whole thing tells us is, again, this is not a big regime change air campaign. This is very specifically focused on ruining high-level, complicated machinery that Iran uses. That can be done by having that machinery break. That was done with the computer virus several years ago in one of Iran's facilities. It can be done by denying power, or the sort of get a bomb through those levels of dirt and concrete and make enough rubble and disruption of the whole thing. So I think there will be a cyber component to this, unquestionably. I think the question now for President Trump is, would putting a few bunker busters or heavy bombs from the U.S. into that target set, what are the weaponeering effects? Is it going to accomplish what he wants? And is this the right moment to make that strike? There's probably never been a better moment with Iran's air defenses peeled back the way they are.
Well, this is what we keep hearing from those who support the idea. Doctor, we heard from the director of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, was talking to Bloomberg earlier today about some of the potential changes that could happen on the ground while we're in the midst of, what is this now, day 6, and whether, in fact, Iran is capable of moving some of this material that we would be attacking. Let's listen to what he said.
In principle, it is there, it is stored there. As you can imagine, at a time of war, all nuclear sites are closed. So our inspectors who are still, I must say, in Iran, although they are in a protected place, as you can imagine, but they are not inspecting. No inspection, normal activity can take place. We assume we have not seen anything that would suggest that the stockpile has been moved.
Okay, if you had any trouble hearing him, he's telling us that the inspectors are still in the country, but of course they're not at the nuclear sites. They are closed right now. Doctor, do we have eyes via satellites on any potential movement of stockpiles inside Iran?
Oh yes, we have so many eyes. Satellites, aircraft. The Air Force has a particular aircraft that can sniff nuclear radiation in the atmosphere. I have to say, I think Rafael Grossi has really worked hard, not only in Iran, but in Ukraine as well. And at some point, it does come down to inspectors from the IAEA, the UN, saying, yep, the stuff's been moved, or there is no nuclear program left, or here's the damage that's been caused. I think he's talking specifically about if Iran agreed to move out the highly enriched uranium and maybe some machinery. The Russians have offered to take it. Who knows? How would that take place at this point? But, we'd have to see some sincerity from Iran. To me, that would perhaps start with no more Iranian missile attacks on Israel. But this is all something that President Trump has the intelligence assets to be able to evaluate if Iran is serious or if they're still running around trying to launch missiles.
Well, just as you say that, Rebecca, like clockwork, headline crosses the terminal, the IDF telling us that it has identified the launch of another round of missiles toward Israel. So this continues at this moment. I spoke with Ron Dermer a couple of days ago here, Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs, and he pointed to American pilots flying aircraft as part of this operation defensively, as we saw last year, firing interceptor missiles at ballistic missiles shot by Iran. What would happen if one of them was shot down?
They have a search and rescue plan in place. It's not easy to execute, but we have extracted people. Believe me, these pilots don't fly without at least a plan for combat search and rescue. Remember, a lot of this is taking place over Iraqi airspace, Jordanian airspace. And yes, we are very involved defensively, from Space Force watching the Iranian missile flares and passing that warning along, to our carrier and land-based pilots who are, I believe, looking for drones to shoot down. And then, of course, our Navy that has already done some exo-atmospheric ballistic missile intercepts against Iranian missiles. So we are in there defensively. It's a hugely important part of containing Iran. Second aircraft carrier, getting close to nearly 50,000 American forces deployed there as we try to contain and denuclearize Iran.
And another boat with 5,000 sailors on the way. You know, it's remarkable to see the way Israel used drones. You mentioned drone technology in the initial attack, not unlike the way Ukraine planted them behind enemy lines in Russia. We saw that take place with Mossad agents planting drones inside Iran, and they were launched remotely. This is something that we've talked about a lot, the changing sort of dynamic when it comes to the most effective weapons platforms, what we should be buying, procurement reform. And there's an argument here about whether we should be buying a lot of cheap drones to do this or putting very expensive modern fighter planes in the air with actual live people inside them. Rebecca Grant, you've made the case that you need to have actual manned aircraft to get this job done.
Hey, drones are great. We need a lot of them, and the U.S. has used them since the Gulf War to attack enemy air defense systems. But Operation Rising Lion proves again that you need manned fighters carrying heavy ordnance with really smart air crews responding to orders. That's what Israel has used over and over. We've seen manned fighters deployed on the carriers, a new wave of fighters, air crews in the tankers doing that. So, hey, manned aircraft are very important. They will be in any scenario, including facing China in the Pacific. So, hey, a big lesson here is we have got to restock our manned air power. Air Force F-47, get the Navy its secret carrier plane that they're about to decide on. We need all of that to team with those drones.
Is this the end of the Tomcat? Did we blow up all the F-14s left? This is what all the Top Gun kids want to know. What happened to the Tomcats, Rebecca? Are they gone?
We've seen at least a few. They weren't in very good condition. That dates back to when we were friends with Iran and they flew the F-14s. We saw at least one blown up. Yeah. I think they are not in a flyable status.